The team who rule the world. An England cricket special with Danny Kelly, Steve Harmison and Alex Tudor.
It's the last ball as Jofra Archer is in. It's flicked towards mid-wicket. Martin Guptill's going to come back, but he's going to be short of its grace. Martin Guptill has run out. New Zealand do not score the 2 runs they need. England celebrate victory in the World Cup final.
We did it because we're the best team, and the best team always find that way. Heroes in the big stage put their hand up and be counted, and that was Ben Stokes.
I don't know, I'm pretty lost for words. I mean, all the hard work over that 4 years to get here and be champions of the world, it's an amazing feeling.
Owen Morgan lifts the trophy as England are crowned Cricket World Cup winners for 2019. England's players celebrate as the fireworks go up, a moment of history for English cricket.
We've seen an epic game of cricket played by two fantastic sides who have done brilliantly getting to the World Cup. We've seen a special performance, and it was going to take a special performance by somebody.
Woakes has gone suffocated by the stifling Kiwis.
It's a bizarre last hour or so. I thought we were dead and buried, and then we tied somehow, and then obviously a super over in a final. It's incredible.
Plunkett goes for 10 from 10. There's still hope from England.
I've never really won a massive trophy. It was meant to be today to win this in England, at Lord's, best ground in the world, in front of an amazing crowd, and everyone got to see it on TV. I'd give him a right leg for it.
And Morgan holds the trophy above his head.
This has been a 4-year journey. We've developed a lot over the course of those 4 years, probably in particular the last 2. But today it was about getting over the line. Sport's tough at times, but to get over the line today means the world to us.
At the end of the day, champion performer in Ben Stokes that got them over the line, and I'm over the moon for every single one.
England are the 2019 World Cup champions.
Yeah, you can repeat that to yourself. England are the world champions at one-day cricket, and this show will be devoted to them. Let me start with each of you. Your personal reaction now that the dust has settled somewhat. Where did you watch the final, and what are your feelings about the ability of us all to repeat the phrase "England are champions of the world"? I'll start with you since you're the tiredest.
Oh, well, I was at home. It was a mixed day. Wife was at a hen, so I had the kids. I was on daddy daycare. I had to try and tire them out early in the morning because I know Daddy wanted to watch the cricket. So we went roller skating, got them back home, got the TV on, and just the emotions of the day just went up and down. About 3 overs out, when Plunkett got out, I looked at my wife, I said, babe, we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. Even with Ben there, I just felt, the moment had gone. But then, as Steve knows better than anyone, he knows the boy really well, and he just backed himself. We have to remember he blocked the first 2 balls, so we need his 16 or 4, and he has that innate ability to just believe in himself. And he took it down, and then when it was all tied, my phone went crazy. Friends that don't really normally watch cricket, they were like, "Ow, what's a super over? What's going on?" And then obviously the super over, and then what happened in there, and it just went up and down again. Just to get that 4 off the last ball was absolutely massive. And then we all know what happened. Jofra Archer, 14 games into his international career, 24 years old, go and win us the World Cup. And they did. And to a man, they were absolutely phenomenal. Owen Morgan, hats off to him. Fantastic captain. We were lucky enough, Steve and John and myself, to see them in the winter in the West Indies and Sri Lanka. And, he's got a great bunch of boys. They all want to play for him. He's very calm, slightly different to the captains Steve and I played under. And he just has that ability, and it rubs off on all the boys. And, absolutely over the moon for him.
John, you were at the ground.
I've never seen a game of cricket which has seen so many experienced old hands look at each other in disbelief at what was going on. And not just on one occasion, not on 2. There weren't 3 or 4 incidents of note. This was every delivery over a period of about an hour. And the build-up to that, the drip effect, a truly classic low-scoring thriller, which the detractors will say the pitch wasn't up to standards of a final, but at the end of the day, it conjured up something that we have all sat down and reminisced about truly great sporting spectacles. And Steve played in one of those. He actually played in a couple. 2005 Ashes, a documentary was on Channel 4 TV again a couple of weekends ago, and Steve was part of it, KP. We all know the story, and we all know why the 2005 Ashes series is held up as the greatest. And the reasons for that are many. It was number 1 against number 2. In the Australian side, a side that hadn't lost to England in the best part of a generation, you had household names. You had the Shane Warne, Glenn McGrath, Ricky Ponting. You had, as Michael Vaughan said, 5 players that would probably go into the world 11 of all time. So you had a hungry audience that were desperate for success, but because it had been so long in the coming, didn't believe it would actually happen. And then within that 5-test series, you had so much incident. You saw what the game go one way and then the other. It was true sporting, miraculous action, week in, week out. And that is why 14 years later, we still talk about the 2005 Ashes. And for the same reason, in 14 years' time, we will be talking about the 2019 Cricket World Cup.
And I think I might retire from watching cricket now. I was on the ground for the last day of the Ashes in 2005. I also... and I thought this was always going to be the benchmark. I was on at the Oval the day that it was a 40-over match. I can't remember what the competition was, where the game ended and the players came off, and it was a very close thing. And the scorer's wife decided that there'd been a misplake in the scoring, and they came out because suddenly it was a tie in the gloaming at 9 o'clock in the evening at the Oval, and had to do bowling at a single stump. I think it was Tim Murtagh.
It was. I tell you when it was. It was Surrey against Warwickshire.
Yeah,
it was. It was in the quarterfinals of the.
I was commentating on that for BBC London.
I was there.
Yeah,
I was there as well.
Was it?
I was there, and it was in the gloom.
Yeah.
And it was 2004.
It's a long time ago.
It was one of my greatest memories as a Surrey cricket fan.
I think it was Tim Murtagh.
Tim Murtagh, shirt off.
Because I crossed him, because we were looking for interviews, and suddenly we had to go out and play again. And I said to him, are you up for this? And he said, we've already had 3 cans of beer. And he had to go back. So I thought that I'd seen everything in cricket now. But now, after yesterday, lying on the sofa at home, I really have seen everything. Nothing else can happen now. Steve, you've played in some of the most famous, as John just pointed out, and emotionally draining games of cricket that any any cricket player could ever be asked to do. How did you survive yesterday?
It was great to watch. I was sitting in the office next door. I had TV on, big TV on. I had iPad on here watching the tennis. So I had got both parts going.
Nobody watched the Grand Prix.
No, I didn't watch the Grand Prix, but watched and seeing. And it was mesmerising because you were watching both, and they were both going to finish. You're thinking they're both going to finish at the same time. At one point, could one of the tennis players break each other and it would finish? And at one point, was Stokes or Butler going to get out? And then that was finished. And you're thinking these two could finish, great contest finish at the same time. But no, it was a long day yesterday. Yeah, it was, but it was a brilliant day for English sport, but English cricket. And to see Ben Stokes. We were there in the Caribbean, and we see him presenting his 50th cap. I've seen Ben grow up since he was 13, 14-year-old, because he moved over from Cumbria into Durham's academy. The likes of Mark Wood from since he was a tot. The emotion was huge, because and Liam Plunkett.
Far too many Northerners in this team, but we'll get on to that.
6 of them, isn't there? And there's 3 from Yorkshire as well. But to see them grow up and to see what happened yesterday, to see them win the World Cup, was just absolute. It was a lump in my throat, and I would be ashamed to say there was a tear in the eye.
It's sometimes very easy to take these events in isolation. We haven't been able to do that with this one, because the story is so well known that in the last World Cup, England got the most tremendous spanking, oddly enough, from New Zealand. And I think Owen Morgan and the management team got together afterwards and said, I think Owen said, we can't go on like this. So it's been an incredibly self-contained 4-year journey from laughing stock to world champions. How difficult was that for a cricket team to do, Steve? Because cricket seems to me to be a rather glacial sport. You can't just replace everybody and hope for the best. How difficult, and what kind of journey, to use the modern parlance of Love Island, what kind of journey has this been?
Well, if you look at the England team, they've probably changed about 5. They've kept 5 players from that group and more or less changed the rest. And they've basically said, which was the right thing, the ones that, it's not so much our best players, it's the ones that can actually do the job the best, which is the players that can, bowl under pressure, bowl differently, hit the ball out the ground,
because at the time we had players who couldn't even hold off the square, never mind out the ground, and that's why we were a laughingstock. But I tell you what, one thing that we haven't really touched upon is this whole 2015 to 2019 was a lot down to New Zealand, because Owen Morgan was talking to Brendan McCullum afterwards, and he came away with the idea of, we want to follow the way New Zealand play. How New Zealand got to the final was, we just keep going, get batsmen that can hit the ball out the ground and keep going and going. It was as simple as that, wasn't it, Tubes?
Yeah, it was. And I think also need to mention, obviously, when we had that disastrous World Cup in Australia, New Zealand, Andrew Strauss, he put it upon himself to say, listen, we need to focus more on white ball cricket. I want to get this World Cup right. And he sort of sat down with Owen and, the coach.
Nasser was involved in it as well. I think there was a little group.
A little group,
together,
yeah. And he just says, we need to focus on white ball cricket. What do you need? And he was like, right, as Steve says, I need someone to hit out the ground. I need a spinner who can turn it both ways. I need pace. And that's obviously, as the years went on, we sort of sped up the inclusion of young Archer. And what a signing that's been. Well, not a signing, but what a find that's been.
But we changed county cricket as well.
That's very football, that.
We changed county cricket as well, didn't we? As well as that, the ECB, that little working group said, right, how do we get the best for our players? Well, the best wickets play at the prime time when people are watching, get them in front of full houses, and let's give the white ball team the best chance for 4 years' time in the World Cup. And that for me has been the detriment of the test match game, and we talked about it in the winter when we were in the Caribbean, and it was a case of, well, all this is great. The struggles of English test cricket is because the red ball game is early in April, May, when it's doing a bit, end of September when nobody's watching, nobody interested, and it's put to the back burner. We'll put up with that only for one thing: winning the World Cup. It's all on winning the World Cup, because that's what it was set out for. And actually now we've won the World Cup. And Ashley Giles was talking about it today, because he's taken over from Strauss. He's basically saying, right, we need to put a strategy together for the next cycle of how do we get both our teams playing the best possible cricket as possible.
Were you always convinced that Morgan was the right man to go from 2015 right through to 2019? Yeah. Because it's a long ask that somebody will be the captain for 4 years' time, and he has had runs where he's been out of form, then come back into form again. So there was total faith from everybody.
For me, he was a natural leader. So calm, he's a betting man. I think he likes. He does, yeah. And I think he's very quite calculated in his mindset, and I think he's very calm under pressure.
And I think, as Sean was saying, it is a long time. But what was happening when he was going through those low periods where he wasn't scoring any runs, his tactics on the pitch was phenomenal, and it was sort of keeping him in the side really because of how he was dealing with the individuals and the bowlers. And as I said, everyone wants to play for him. He's a very calm and assured young man, and he's been absolutely phenomenal. And then when he's been under pressure as well, he's gone out there and has scored the runs as well. So, my hat's off to it.
Jofra Archer is in. It's flicked towards mid-wicket. Martin Guptill's going to come back, but he's going to be short of its grace. Martin Guptill has run out. New Zealand do not score the 2 runs they need. England celebrate victory in the World Cup final.
After everything he's been through, and a lot of it is his own fault, by the way, the way he's recovered as a human being and as a cricketer, he is the best cricketer in the world, all-round cricketer in the world. But Stokes, for what he offers in the field, his belief with the ball and the bat.
The throw from the deep, though, hit the batsman as he made his ground, deviated past Tom Latham behind the stumps and rolled all the way to the boundary.
I think people mustn't underestimate the value of Jofra Archer in that England side. Fast-tracking him into that England team won them that World Cup.
What you see is what you get with Owen. He's very calm, very cool, very calculated. One of the great captains of English cricket, the best white ball captain we've ever had.
Trent Boult steadied himself, took the catch, but in overbalancing put his leg on the boundary, and so 6 runs is the call rather than the wicket, and England live to fight another delivery.
I think the first thing you need to do is set a pretty lofty goal and not be scared to dream. Ultimately, our dream was to become the number 1 test team in the world. This England one day team's dream was to win the World Cup. That was what they set out to do, and once you have that, you can then, and you're very clear on the direction you want to go.
That's 4. It's 4. Great effort by Martin Guptill, but it's gone for 4. And this is a great start in the Super Over for England.
Jofra Archer bowled at Super Over yesterday. He is as valuable as anybody in that team. Now, no Ben Stokes has taken all the plaudits. He got the man of the match, and a lot of the batters, as I like to throughout my career, got a lot of the credit. The bowlers didn't. That Jofra Archer is a very special bowler.
Yeah, today on TalkSport, dozens of people having their say about it. Among those you heard there were Darren Gough, John Norman, Kevin Peterson, Nasser Hussain, Steve Harmison, of course, who's here with us as well, and Matt Pryor. Welcome back to the team that rule the world. Rule, present tense, England, current world champions of cricket. One of the big discussions, I think, that has come out of all of this was Sky's decision to give or sell, or whatever they did, the rights to the big day and the big final to Channel 4. Sean, we often talk on Monday Night here about the different effect that media, newspapers, the modern internet and its various offshoots, radio, television, can have on sport. I mean, how important was it that this game was on terrestrial television?
Well, I don't know what the long-term effects of it will be, because I don't know how many youngsters honestly will have watched it, because there's not a body of free TV, cricket TV before that. But I can only speak for myself when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. We got used to a diet of 5 test matches being on television.
Jim Laker, Richie Benaud,
Peter West. I can go back that far. 5 tests. That's what was on in the school holidays, and I'm not kidding. I would sit and watch it, and you'd watch it right through. And I can remember them going, "Oh, he's a bit expensive, giving away 2.8 runs and over," and things like that. But it was fascinating. I loved it. You think we'd never have seen
watching David Steele bang along at half a run
absolutely, or Taverret, I know. But we would never have seen. A lot of people would never have seen both of them in the Ashes. I mean, that's ingrained in my mind. I mean, just
you've got Sir Alistair Cook. Sir Alistair Cook's put 150 odd test matches, and he's not played one day on terrestrial TV. No, they wouldn't.
When you look at the figures, people are saying how many people watch it, but I'd be very interested to know how many of them were youngsters, teenagers, and all that, because I'm not sure whether there'd be that many.
I think a lot of the cricket clubs who haven't got Sky, they'll have had the terrestrial TV on, and then the kids would have been at. I think at local cricket clubs were, I think it would have been packed out. A lot of family funders. I know there was one up at Asherton, but we've got a vested interest. We had Mark Wood playing, but we haven't got Sky at our cricket club.
You've just made an incredibly important point, because I think there are the cricketers of the terrestrial television generation. I don't know whether you count yourself among those. They are famous. You are famous. Yeah. I wonder if Alistair Cook could wander down most London streets, or certainly most English village streets outside of Essex, without being, and wouldn't be recognised. I don't think he'd be recognised. And he's one of the great sportsmen of the last 20 years.
Okay, so the ECB conducted research over the last few years into the popularity of this sport. Okay, now we all know about the introduction of the 100, a form of the game which is.
Or the unnecessary, as I call it.
Well, possibly so, but what cricket has is an identity problem. Nobody knows who it is. If you were to stop, this is the ECB's own research, if you were to ask 100 school children at primary school age to name your top 2 sports, only 2% would name cricket in that top 2. If you were to look at the average age of the viewing cricketing public, only golf has an older average of age. So cricket has a huge problem that it needs to address. And the ECB are in a position where the horse has bolted in terms of whether cricket should be on terrestrial TV or not. For me, that's almost a misnomer. You are never going to get a position where a terrestrial TV company are going to free up, like Sky Sports have over the last 48 days, their TV channels to devote an entire channel just to showing the World Cup.
Yes.
And if you think I'm wrong, what channel showed the Cricket World Cup the last time England were in a World Cup final?
I've got a little bit of personal input into this, that my brother is the programme director of a television company in Ireland, a sports television company, and he says cricket is actually a brilliant thing, because if you can get the rights, and obviously that's where the issue is, after that it's fantastically cheap. You just have 2 people at the ground and 1 person in the studio. And so although people say the rights are very expensive, compared to sort of games that last 90 minutes, you can actually put on a lot. So he says there is an attraction still for television companies.
cricket needs to watch out, because we're in danger of essentially turning a TV company that has invested more money into the sport, that has had direct influence into the success of the women's team, has a direct influence into the success of the disability teams, that has had a direct influence into England rising to number one in the world and winning Ashes overseas, that has created a product. And we all watch a lot of cricket from all over the world. Sky Sports cricket coverage wins BAFTAs. It has moved the landscape of what is cricket broadcasting to a level that has never been seen before. John, we can always look back with misty eyes at Peter West. I totally agree with you, but can you remember what the BBC did when Graham Gooch was approaching 300?
They went to the news.
They went to the news.
But John,
world has gone. It's not coming back.
You can say the same thing about Sky's coverage of European football. Then BT outbid them. Who remembers Sky's coverage of European football? Gone now. Don't remember that at all. Moved on somewhere else.
Hang on. It just went to another subscription model. That's not the same.
My point is...
That's not what people are hoping will happen.
Praising the quality of it is fantastic and true, but that's not what people are interested in. They want to know whether they can see it or not.
Well, this is a massive thing for me, and I know Steve spoke about it earlier. It's great what Sky and these broadcasters do. But for a man who works in a school, which I do now, and we asked that question, could Alistair Cook walk down the street and not be bothered, know anyone know it? Yes, he could. He can walk into my school, kids won't know who he is.
That's shocking.
Which is embarrassing. And I hammered him for it. As Steve said, he's not played a single game on terrestrial TV. Okay? I know John's right, about the amount of money they've pumped in and stuff.
We're not making them the enemy. We're not trying to make them the enemy, no.
Yeah, I'm looking at...
I'm not making any enemy. But what I'm saying is that all what's gone on is fantastic, but lower down, those young kids, if they do not see it on TV, and as Sean rightly said, it'll be interesting to know how many kids actually watched it on TV. But also, I don't know.
The money that they've pumped in at the grassroots level, you see now, you go with your PCA cricket captain, when you go to these clubs, you see these fantastic nets surfaces, and you'll probably have them at the school, and you see them at the local cricket clubs. The money that's getting pumped into the game, and it's getting filtered down to get these facilities for these kids to play, is because of a lot of it is because of TV rights going in from that, but also from the England cricket team performing well, and that has to filter down, as well as a simple one. ITV, BBC, terrestrial TV channels, are they going to take Coronation Street, EastEnders, Emmerdale Farm off for cricket?
Not Emmerdale, surely.
For cricket at prime time to put the 100 on.
Wimbledon is only on 2 weeks of the year. That's probably the only live tennis people see. But that generates a heck of a lot of interest. If you just put 2 weeks of cricket onto, say, BBC Two, they run the tennis right through the day, 2 weeks of cricket on, full attention on it, I think it would make a massive difference.
I just think
be fantastic.
It needs to be done. It needs someone with...
Somebody brave enough.
Someone brave enough to make the decision and say...
No, it doesn't. It needs Sky to do exactly what they just did. It needs us to say thank you to Sky for Sky TV to essentially give the nation what we received yesterday. And don't think that Sky TV aren't aware of the growing age of the viewership. That game yesterday must have led to thousands of new subscriptions for Sky Sports TV packages.
For the Ashes.
Exactly. And this is the thing. Sky, looking forward to next year with the 100, are now hand in hand with terrestrial TV to get cricket back on free-to-air TV.
Well,
so Sky are not the villains in all this, in the way that it seems to be created on social media. Don't ever make Sky the villains, because they have done more for this game than pretty much any other broadcaster.
This is a fantastic job application, John. Listen.
That is a glorious shot from Jos Buttler. Beats the man at mid-off, all along the floor.
One of England's most gifted players, Jos Buttler can hit the ball to any part of any ground. While struggling to hit the heights in this tournament, his 50 in the final gave England hope.
Buttler loves to attack down the ground, and he does now. He comes down the ground and does exactly that. Hits it flat and hard like an Exocet missile for 6.
His last act to whip off the bails, run out Martin Guptill and confirm England as world champions.
Yeah, welcome back to the team that rule the world. I'm Danny Kelly. Sean Custer's departed us now, so I don't mean in any long-term way, but he's gone home. Here we're still with Steve Harmison and Alex Tudor, both former England fast bowlers, and John Norman, TalkSport's cricket czar. Funny old thing on I was absolutely in the middle of the night last night. I was still scanning Twitter for reactions and all the rest of it, and I came across a whole lot of stuff through some Indian people who follow me, with particularly Indian people saying this is not fair. This is not England cricket team. It's a World 11, and they made the point that one of our players was born in South Africa, Jason Roy. That Owen Morgan's not English. That Jofra Archer has just been imported from the West Indies, like he was a commodity. And of course, even Ben Stokes was born outside of these islands in New Zealand. I went on to point out the coach is Australian, the bowling coach here, the spin coach is Pakistani, and so on and so on. This morning, of course,
the fielding coach is a Mackham.
And of course, you've got 3 Yorkshiremen. They won't count themselves English either, will they? Jacob Rees-Mogg, that pretender, came on Twitter this morning saying, "See, we didn't need Europe to win, did we?" I made a point to him. Actually, we need an awful lot of help from all around the world. And to me, the fact that there's white, black and brown people in the team, the fact that they come from all over the world to represent that shirt as proud as they did. And I'm looking at Owen Morgan, who has the same complicated Irish-English background and me and everybody from these islands has. I think it was I'm going to get accused of being a left-wing snowflake here. I thought it was one of the best things about this team. I loved it.
This may surprise you, I don't believe that we should have different tiers of education in this country. I don't believe that if you're richer, you should go to a better school. I don't believe that you should have faith schools. I think that schools should be reflective of the society that they're based. Okay? Mm-hmm. And I think the same thing should be said of our sports teams. And this English team is reflective of the UK society. If you look at the way that the country is made up, it's about, 10% Afro-Caribbean, tick. Jofra Archer's one of 11. You've got a strong Muslim contingent, which is part of the fabric of our society, tick. You've got Adil Rashid, the son of a Pakistani immigrant, and Moeen Ali, 2 devout Muslims. You have 5 working class kids in that team, and you've got a couple of rich boys, because you wouldn't be a cricket side without it. And yes, you've got a guy that was
possibly
born in South
overrepresented
Africa.
on the Ginger front, aren't we?
Yeah, but
I think we probably are.
But on the other thing with that though as well, John, the only one not so I have any problem with, take Jofra Archer's side, they've all been educated in English cricket by English in the English way. They've all come through the English system. Owen Morgan played, he came through the Middlesex system. Ben Stokes, born in New Zealand, come over when he's 6, came through the English school system. Jason Roy came over early as well. So they came through the English system. So for me, that is the only thing. That's the main thing. It's end of argument. Jofra Archer's the only one who didn't come through that. And Peterson was the same in my team. Hick, the one before that. Alan Lamb, Robin Smith before that one. So there's always been people around.
Does anybody know the story of why Jofra chose to go the route he has done? Because he's clearly good enough to play for. I've watched some of the West Indies attacks in recent years. He's clearly good enough to play for them.
He played 19s for them.
I think he played under 19.
He wasn't selected for the West Indies under 19 World Cup squad, and it was that decision that enabled him to, or allowed him to, follow a well-trodden path. You read CLR James back in the day, they were moaning about losing Barbadian and Trinidadian cricketers to England 100 years ago. Look, you cannot choose to ignore history. Cricket was and is played by countries that were colonised by England or the United Kingdom. That is why they play cricket. And that is why England is fortunate enough to be able to call upon generations of players from these countries, because of course there are links going back to the motherland through generations. You cannot change history. Now, you can be dismissive, fair enough. You can accuse some of these players going back to year dot of being mercenaries because you're going to make more money playing for England. But these guys and girls have got British passports. They are inherently linked to this country in the same way that Alex Tudor has inherent links to Barbados. You cannot rule out people's history.
I actually had more trouble with the players who came from South Africa because South Africa were not playing international cricket. That seemed to be a bit more cynical. People who've come here, their parents have come here to work and all the rest of it. I know that's what my parents did as well. Owen Morgan's even more complicated. I think his mother's English, so he's always had a British passport as well. It was a fascinating thing to watch this reaction. I think the Indians, incidentally, not all, of course, but the Indian people I was reading in a very, very long thread, I suspect that the politics of these islands, the complication of the politics of these islands was lost on most of them. Frankly, they just wanted England to lose. They didn't want England to win the World Cup.
But we do hear the reverse as well. You know, when Wilfried Zaha decided not to play for England, when the Irish players decide to play for Ireland, and you hear the same. It does work both ways.
And of course, the dog I have in this fight is as we head to the Rugby Union World Cup, where Ireland are, in my opinion, second favourites to win it after the All Blacks, as always, the All Blacks. And, you know, the groaning and moaning. I mean, we love the rugby team in Ireland because it represents the whole island. But now we have inherited certain South Africans who come over to Ireland to play for Munster and play for Leinster, and they've become nationalised Irish. People with Irish roots way, way back have suddenly been nationalised into the team. And we're having exactly the same argument there. Well, this isn't the proper Irish team. Well, we live in a global society. And unless we're going to go completely bonkers and say you have to kind of be, unless you're born in Yorkshire, you can't play for England. I mean, I found these arguments fatuous, and I particularly got on Rees Mogg's case because he knows the ins and outs of this, but he's tweeting that slightly provocatively because he believes that some of the people reading that will be too stupid. That's what he thinks of you, too stupid to see through the thin tissue of nonsense that he's creating.
It's not just about the makeup of the side, though, is it? 4 years ago, I was in New Zealand, and I couldn't help but notice a very different makeup to the spectators that turned up to support New Zealand. Very different to what I'd seen and have seen in England. And by that, I meant the place was absolutely rammed with first and second generation Asian fans in New Zealand kits, Pacific Islanders in New Zealand kits, European descendants in New Zealand kits. The ethnic diversity of the crowds in New Zealand, in Auckland, was completely different to the very white, middle and upper class and aged support base that you get in England. So we can celebrate this wonderfully diverse side, but we shouldn't get away from the fact that the people watching are still a bit too old and a bit too white.
It's the same, somewhat similar in football, where I think exactly the same issues as the teams have all become multiracial and completely global. I watch, certainly at the old stadium at Tottenham, I've watched the people around me particularly get older and older and older. There's no young, but that's because it's 60 quid and 70
but that
quid.
is exactly the point then. That is exactly the point, because it costs, and this goes back to the age-old argument in terms of TV rights and sports and the way the game's changed. In New Zealand, I was out there 2015, right? I saw what up until that point was the best game of ODI cricket I have ever seen. New Zealand against Australia in the group stages at Eden Park, 45,000 people. Aussies bowled out for 140 odd. New Zealand went off like a rocket, and then Mitchell Starc took 6 wickets. They were 9 down, staring oblivion, and then Kane Williamson, who probably should have actually batted with Jimmy Neesham yesterday in that super over, hit Patrick Cummins for a 6, final ball to win the game. Amazing, amazing scenes. Do you know how much my ticket was?
Go on.
$10.
Yeah.
And it's the same in Australia. You want to go and see the Ashes, and then when it's over there, you can buy a ticket for about $30. How much does it cost you to watch cricket here?
Well, I know.
100 quid.
Yeah.
And there is a huge problem.
And I think that's where we can now talk the terrestrial TV, take it to a whole new level about the access to watching the game of cricket. And for me, county cricket, the game is getting the money that's getting pumped into the game, that's getting filtered down to these counties. You know, ECB look after these counties all the way through. I think county cricket should be free to get in, and you try and get kids into it, getting as much as you want, because you talk about age and population watching the game of cricket. There's hardly any kids watch the red ball game. So just open the gates and let them in. You'll make more money off popping crisps. And I think the way
what on earth are they even thinking about charging people for it in this day and age?
I'm a member at Surrey. I still pay my subs. And I sit there with my dad, as we have sat there for 30 odd years, and I look around and I think to myself, I'm going to be on my own in 20 years' time.
You'll be a freak of nature. That's exactly what's going to happen.
I already am.
And they do, yeah, John, I'm aware of that, but I mean, really, we're going to have to address this thing, because the county this discussion about the county championship is going on throughout my now several decades length of being a sports journalist, and we don't seem to get to the bottom of it. I mean, and here's the problem, Steve. They're excellent players. No doubt the people playing for the county teams, but I don't know them from Adam, half of them now, and I go and watch cricket on a Sunday morning at London Fields, where there's a high quality game of amateur cricket going on. I might as well be at a county cricket game, because there's many people watching, and I'm not sure the standard's much lower. I'm sure it is in reality, but all I'm watching, what I see is a game of cricket. If it was free, of course, perhaps more people would go, and you could take a whole class full of kids from your school, say, I'm going to show you something different today, and it only takes 2 of those kids to get turned on by it, and we're into the next generation.
Let them play on the field.
Yeah,
let them play on the field.
Wokes goes through via the inside edge.
England's nice guy and Mr. Reliable, Chris Wokes went from nowhere man to leader of the pack. A banker for an early wicket, he took 16 across the competition. Guptill, Warner, Sharma and Steve Smith all fell victim.
Here's Wokes once again.
Now Sadira edges it straight into the gloves of Jos Buttler.
One of 5 England players who experienced both the despair of the last World Cup and the ecstasy of yesterday's unforgettable final.
Yeah, well, let's talk about some of the individual England players. I don't mind starting with Chris Wokes, actually, because whatever about his form, the idea that Chris would play 11 straight games without ending up on a stretcher, I'm sorry, because I know all fast bowlers get injured, and maybe you're going to look at me sideways. It just seems extraordinary to me, John. I just didn't think the fellow would get through the tournament.
Well, I don't think he would have played all 11, because England were hoping that they would be through to the semi-final stage by about game 6. Yeah. But, of course, losing to Sri Lanka and then Australia meant they could not rest him. But I think you're totally right. It's a huge surprise that injury allowed him to play all 11. And I mean, when you look back at this World Cup, some of the performances from this England team just defy belief. And Chris Wokes is just one of those guys that's consistently gone under the radar. But his new bowling, his batting, but also his fielding, that catch to dismiss Rishabh Pant at Edgbaston, well, it's in the top 10 catches, which tells you it must be pretty good, because we saw some absolute worldies.
I thought going into the start of the summer, if there was a vulnerable one, even though he's done so well for England in the last 2 years, if Wooden Archer hit their straps, it could be Wokes if England play 2 spinners, because of how much Morgan trusts Plunkett. And we were in the winter with him, and you say how he's struggling with his knee, picking, choosing games and all that. And he didn't have a very good start to the summer. He went for 70 in the first game against Pakistan, then went for 60, then went for 70 again. And it was the fifer in the last one-day international he seemed to give him a little bit of confidence leading into the World Cup. And I think because of that fifer, he's not looked back since. But I think after the Pakistan series, before that last game, he was a little bit short on confidence. And I thought he might have been the vulnerable one if Wood and Archer hit the straps.
Yeah, he's been brilliant. I'm a big fan. He's a top bloke as well. Arguably the nicest bloke in cricket, as they mentioned. But
some of those New Zealanders seem pretty nice to me.
Yeah, they are. They're some decent blokes. But with the new ball, he's taken the new ball. He's bowling the first over, and that sort of, as Steve knows, it sets the tone for the game, and especially for that innings. And he's done that really, really well. Obviously, Steve just mentioned the figures earlier on, but to come back from that and to stand up and be counted and to do what he's done is absolutely phenomenal. And as John's mentioned, he's not only an opening bowler. He can bat and get handy runs, and also, he's gun in the field. There's no place now for lads to just have, one string to their bow.
He's got a great cricket brain. He's got a fantastic cricket brain.
And sensible. And I mean, they're all. I can't think of an England player who hasn't done well. Adil Rashid would have probably wanted to do even better than he did, but this was not a spinners tournament. Another mention then for another hero. Didn't play every game because of his injury, and boy did England miss him. Liam Plunkett. These are the wickets that Liam Plunkett took in this tournament. Hashim Amla, Quentin de Kock, Mushfiqur Rahim, Chris Gale, Virat Kohli, Rishabh Pant, Hardik Pandya, Tom Latham and Kane Williamson. I mean, that's a world 11. He doesn't get no rabbits. He doesn't get down to the rabbits.
Morgan trusts him.
Incredible.
He trusts him. He was desperate to get him in his team. He trusts him. He knows. I've grown up. You know, I've seen the growing up of Liam Plunkett. He left Durham, and he was on his way out the game. He's on his way out the game. We thought that there was going to be the end for him. You know, he was struggling mentally. He had few off-field problems, and you know, don't want to go into that. He had a few off-field problems. His head was all over the shop, and a lot of it down was what was happening off the field. His dad was poorly, and then he went to Yorkshire. Jason Gillespie got him into a position where, Liam, just bowl fast. Forget this action when you walk, because he used to walk back. When he's at Durham, he'd be practicing his action and arms and going everywhere, and he was trying to reassure himself. Jason Gillespie got hold of him and said, Liam, that thing in your hand, bowl it to that wicketkeeper at the other end.
It's a genius.
Try and get it. Yeah. Well, it is. And he said, just do it as fast as you can. Not bother where it goes. Your captain will set your fields. Do that. And I think what Liam's always had the ability to do, Danny, was he could go 6, 7, 8 and over, go all around the park, but he would go, because you would go drive ball, short ball, cut, pull, and an absolute jaffa, which would nick somebody off. And you'd say, well, you know what, that's not bad, that, because I'll give you 12 runs if I'm going to get the best players out.
Correct.
He gets the best players out.
Because the new man coming in takes 15 balls to get going, and so on. Of course, the other bowling hero for England was, Jofra Archer, just almost speechless about what he has achieved in a few short months. And speaking this afternoon on Hawksbee and Jacobs, Matt Pryor said that Jofra proved he could handle the pressure despite his inexperience.
I was actually having a discussion with a few of the guys as we were sort of crouched over the iPad watching, and they were sort of saying, would it be worse to be the batsman or the bowler? And for me, to be the bowler would be the worst. You know, Jofra, that Jofra bowl was just incredible, because you're just one bloke with the ball, and the sort of destiny of a nation, or the cricket anyway, is sort of in your hands, and how you execute your plans and everything else. And for such a young man to absorb that and bowl as he did and execute as he did under the most extreme pressure is credit and testament to him. And I think if anyone doubted, was he going to be able to step up and, take the pressure and all of that, I think he's proved everyone.
Okay, I'll start with one of the two fast bowlers in this room. I'll start with you, Alex. Lots of moving parts in bowling. How does Jofra Archer do what he does? He appears to be going to bowl medium pace to me when he gets to the wicket, and suddenly batsmen are clutching bloody rags to their faces. How's he doing this?
I don't know. He's taking a mick in here. I mean, you got Steve and I in here, and we steam in and try and bowl as fast as we can. He just ambles up off a short run up, and he just has.
Well, you're a coach. What is it? What is he doing? Oh, okay. Good.
Well, he ambles up, but obviously he's got rhythm. He's obviously very athletic, and what he has in his shoulder, his rotation, but that power that he generates at the crease is phenomenal. He has that brace front leg. That brace front leg, which I'm always talking to these young fast bowlers, because a lot of them collapse. That brace front leg, a bit like when you see javelin throwers, and then the force he puts through it is where he gets his pace, and it's phenomenal. He has a great wrist action, sings bolt upright, it goes one way or the other, he pretty much lands it where he wants, and he's the one bowler in world cricket that I would tune in when he's bowling. I would tune in and see what he's doing, and I knew obviously it was a massive over that he had to bowl, but if you look at pressure where he's had to bowl, okay, death situations in the Big Bash for Hobart Hurricanes, he's given the ball. Rajasthan Royals, when they're into the death situations, he's given the ball. So he's dealt with that at that stage, at a higher level, in packed stadia around the world. Yes, it's a World Cup and it's, to a nation and stuff like that, but I was confident that he would be able to deliver that oval.
And I spent the last 3 years slowly going greyer and greyer, wondering how will we ever replace Jimmy Anderson in the Test team. Could he go straight into the Ashes team?
Yes.
Talk about the Ashes next.
Yeah, I think he could go in. We could go into the Ashes team, but the death bowling is. I was joking this morning. I was taking a mickey at myself this morning with Dean Saunders. We're talking about the practice that the preparation that I put in. And now it's like 2 bricks on the white line with a broom shank over the top to try and get it underneath. And Dino said, "Look, they're looking to aim to hit a 10 pence piece." And I said, "Dino, I struggle at Beach Town and mind a 10 pence piece sometimes."
Dustbin lead for Alex. That's better than a Beach Town.
But the actual accuracy that they strive for in practice is why they are good, and the temperament. He wouldn't have thought twice. He would have been, right, I've got first ball plan here is Yorker. Second ball plan here, Yorker.
First ball was actually a Harmison, wasn't it?
Yeah, actually it wasn't. For me, it wasn't a why, because the batsman moved. And the rules state if the batsman moves, the line moves. So,
and the thing is, when I was out there in the West Indies watching them practice, okay, Jofra wasn't there, obviously, but watching some of the bowlers, Mark Wood and stuff, and especially Chris Jordan, when they run up to bowl and deliver these Yorkers, the coach is standing there and telling them at the last minute when they're in their cold position where they got to put it.
Yeah.
Be it because obviously batsmen are moving around, so it's like following leg side, bowler wide one on the offside, and it's that split second. It's not like the end of their mark. Yes, I'm going to run up and bowl a Yorker. No. It's when you're in that cold position, the coach is saying, right, Yorker left, Yorker right, and they have to deliver that, and it's frightening that the levels of expertise these guys put in now, because we didn't do that in our day.
I want to thank you all very much. Thank you, John Norman. Thank you, Alex Tudor. Thank you, Steve Harmison. It's been an absolute blast. And thank you for listening as well. If you've enjoyed it half as much as we have, then you've had an absolute blast as well.